There are two basic issues when it comes to case marking in Arabic. One, how do you mark the case on a particular word? And two, how do you know what case to mark on that word when it's in a particular place in a sentence? The first issue is basically related to form and the second to function. In this lesson, we will be dealing only with the first issue, marking case, in other words, case form. In a future lesson, we'll deal with how to know which case should be marked on a particular word in a sentence, in other words, case function. To quickly review Arabic cases, Arabic has three cases: nominative, accusative, and genitive. In the simplest terms, these cases are used to mark, respectively, subjects, objects, and objects of prepositions. I will be using the English names for these cases in this presentation, but the names are arbitrary. They could easily be called case 1, case 2, and case 3. The Arabic terms are ar-rafa, an-nasb, and al-jar. These are the names of the cases themselves. When you want to use them to say that a word is marked as a particular case, as in, this word is accusative, you use the past participle derived from these case names, specifically marfu' for nominative, mansub for accusative, and majrur for genitive. To understand Arabic case markings, you need to understand the concept of a word class. You can get this understanding by thinking about forming plurals in English. The general rule is to simply add s to the noun, and most nouns do it this way. In fact, the large majority of nouns, like book, books, car, cars, vacation, vacations, computer, computers, etc. However, there's another class of words to which you add es instead of s: box, boxes, boss, bosses, fortress, fortresses, fox, foxes, church, churches. This class is quite a bit smaller than the first one, but still fairly big. Then you get some very small word classes that might be considered exceptions, or what we call irregular plurals. For example, there are a few words where you add en to form the plural, as in child, children. There's others where you change the last vowel in the word to get the plural, as in man, men, woman, women, mouse, mice, goose, geese. And there's others where you do nothing to form the plural: sheep, sheep, deer, deer. Finally, there are a few where you change the word altogether: person, people. The regular plurals are more or less predictable, but the irregular plurals simply have to be learned as exceptions. When a person grows up learning English, they learn these word classes automatically. They don't actually know that they know a word class. They just know how to form the plural of any particular word, so they know what class words belong to intuitively. On this slide are listed the 9 basic word classes for Arabic cases. Every word, every noun and adjective that takes a case belongs in one of these classes. Now, 9 is a lot, but it is also finite. As with English plurals, the first few classes, like triptote and diptote and sound masculine plural, etc., are quite common, but the other classes are quite a bit less common. But since there's only 9, you should be able to master this system, including the less common classes. The names for these classes, like triptote and diptote, are rather arbitrary, but these are just the names that are traditionally used to refer to these classes. You could just say class 1, class 2, etc. It is not important to try to understand what the word triptote means. It's just the name of a word class, and that's it. So the question that you might ask is, when you're reading along in a text and you see nouns and adjectives in sentences, how do you know what case to mark on each particular noun and adjective? Well, you need to follow this procedure. First of all, you figure out what case the word is, the noun or adjective. Is it nominative, accusative, or genitive? To figure this out, you have to figure out what the word is doing in the sentence. Doing this will be the subject of a different lesson. Once you know that the word is going to be marked either nominative, accusative, or genitive, then you have to decide or determine what word class the word is in, because the word classes mark nominative, accusative, and genitive differently. Finally, once you know what case you're working with and what word class you're working with, then you determine how you should mark that case on that particular word class. What I don't want you to do when someone says, "What case is this word?" is to answer, oh, that's u, or that's dhamma. The reason you don't do that is because cases are marked differently on different word classes. And so it just mixes things up when you answer with an ending or a vowel. When someone says, what case is that? Answer with the name of the case. That's nominative. That's accusative or genitive. And in this particular word, because it belongs to this word class, it is marked with u, for example. This slide is a review of what I just said. Don't confuse the cases, nominative, accusative, and genitive, with the vowels or endings that mark those cases. In other words, when someone says, what case is that in, don't answer something like u. Why not? Because the vowels that mark the cases vary depending on the word class. Also remember that case interacts always with definiteness in important ways, so that when you learn how to mark the case on words, you need to learn how to mark it in various states of definiteness. In other words, whether the noun has an article or not, or a pronoun ending, or a second term of idafa. We are now going to go through the case markings for the various word classes. The most common nouns and adjectives are triptotes. When they have no attachment, in other words, when there's no definite article, no pronoun ending, and no second term of idafa, then they are marked with the vowel plus nunation. So in nominative is un, accusative is an, and genitive is in. Now notice that an sometimes is marked with an extra silent aleph. That aleph usually goes on the end of normal masculine words, but doesn't go on, for example, on the end of feminine words with a tamarbhuta. So you'll either see just the tanween, an, or the n with an aleph. When there is an attachment, in other words, a definite article, a pronoun ending, or the second term of idafa, the vowel pattern is the same without the tanween. So we get u for nominative, a for accusative, and e for genitive. Now this is a fairly simple pattern. Un, an, in, when it's indefinite, and u, a, e, when it's definite. You should commit this pattern to memory. This page shows a number of examples of these cases being marked on normal, regular nouns. So we have kitabun, kitaban with the aleph, and kitabin, indefinite. However, with waraqa that ends in a tamarbhuta, we have waraqatun, waraqatan, and waraqatin. Notice that the endings are the same, but the aleph is not there because of the tamarbhuta on the second case. When there's definite, either with a definite article or a pronoun ending, or a second term of idafa, we get the same endings without the tanween: al-kitabu, al-kitaba, al-kitabi, al-waraqatu, al-waraqata, al-waraqati, kitabuha, kitabaha, kitabiha, waraqatul ustad, waraqatal ustad, waraqatil ustad. Diptotes are less common than triptotes, but they're still a rather big, common word class. Luckily, when a diptote has an attachment, either a definite article or a pronoun ending or a second term of idafa, then the vowels are exactly the same as the triptotes. U for nominative, a for accusative, e for genitive. So the u, a, e pattern still holds. However, when there are no attachments, when you have a plain indefinite word, then the vowels are different. First of all, notice that there is no nunation. Second of all, notice that the pattern is u for nominative, a for accusative, and a for genitive. So instead of the triptote un, an, in, you get u, a. The word Madaris and the name Beirut are both diptotes, and so you can see some examples of diptotes being voweled here. We get indefinite, Madarisu, Madarisa, Madarisa, and with Beirut, Beirutu, Beiruta, Beiruta. Notice that Beirut is not actually indefinite. It's considered definite because it's a proper name, but it doesn't have an article, it doesn't have a pronoun ending, and it doesn't have second term of idafa, so it counts as no attachments, and it's voweled that way. With the article, everything goes back just like it was with triptotes. Al-madarisu, madarisa, al-madarisi, madarisuha, madarisaha, madarisiha, madarisut-tullab, madarisat-tullab, madarisit-tullab. So how do you know if a word is a diptote instead of a triptote? Well, part of it is just to memorize it and become accustomed to the system. But it turns out that most diptotes fall in certain classes. There are some types of words that are consistently diptotes, like names of females. So, for example, the name Shirin is a diptote when it doesn't have an article, which it doesn't, or a pronoun ending. You just get Shirinu, not Shirinun. Cities, names of cities, are always diptotes, like Beirutu. Elatives, like Akbar, are always diptotes. Colors, which have the same consonantal pattern, like Ahmar, are also diptotes. Broken plurals with 3 syllables, like Madaris and Astiqa, are almost all diptotes, as are other words that end in a, like the feminine Hamra and Sahra, desert. There's other words that are often diptotes. So there are many male names which are triptotes, but there are some which are diptotes, as Ibrahim. And the names of countries, again, some of them are triptotes, but quite a few of them are diptotes, like Misr. And of course, there's going to be a few random unpredictable diptotes that you just have to memorize as they come along. Sound feminine plurals are easy to recognize because they are all the plurals of feminine words that end in Tamaguta that have at, an aleph, and a ta at the end. Sound feminine plurals take the u, e pattern. Remember, triptotes are u, a, e. Diptotes are u, a. Well, sound feminine plurals are u, e. And they do take nunation when there's no attachments. So when there's no attachments, when it's indefinite, you get un, in, and in. Notice that the one that's surprising is the in instead of an for accusative. And for with attachments, with the definite article, pronoun, and intersecond term of idafa, you get u, e. Again, the surprising one is the e for the accusative. So on this slide we see examples of the sound feminine plural talibat, which is female students. So we get talibatun, talibatin, talibatin, but then with all the attachments, a talibatu, a talibati, a talibati, talibatuha, talibatiha, talibatiha, talibatul mudina, talibatul madina, talibatil madina, talibatil madina. So u, e, all the way through, both with the article and without the article. Sound masculine plurals are words that end in una or ina, the plurals of many words like mudarris, mudarrisun, misri, misriyun, etc. They divide a little differently than the ones we've had so far. Here we have those either with an article or without an article patterning together, and those with final attachments, in other words, with a pronoun ending or a second term of idafa, patterning together. So if there is either a definite article or no article, you get una for nominative and ina for accusative and genitive. If there is a final attachment, like a pronoun ending or second term of idafa, you get u for nominative, e for accusative, and e for genitive, which is really the same with the noon dropped. And so the idea is when you have a final attachment, you drop the noon. So for example, we get teachers, mudarrisuna, mudarrisina, mudarrisina, and with the article, same thing, al-mudarrisuna, al-mudarrisina, al-mudarrisina. But when you add a pronoun ending or a second term of idafa, you must drop the noon. So you get mudarrisuha, mudarrisiha, mudarrisiha, and mudarrisul madina, mudarrisil madina, mudarrisil madina. Notice that with sound masculine plurals, and we'll see later with duals, this is one of the places where the case actually shows up on the page, even if you're not writing the short vowels. Duals are similar to sound masculine plurals in that the dual with either without an article or with an article is one pattern, and with the attachments is the other. So we get nominative ani, and then accusative and genitive aini, ani, aini, aini. Annie, Eine, Eine, Annie, Eine, Eine, and you drop the noon when you have a final attachment, so you get a, I, and I. So for example, when there is no article, rajulani, rajulaini, rajulaini, with an article, ar-rajulani, ar-rajulaini, ar-rajulaini, but then you drop the noon in the other two cases, rajulaha, rajulaiha, rajulaiha, rajulal bait, rajulail bait, rajulail bait. Notice that I vowed these with the sukun, just because that's what you're expecting, but of course, if you know the rules for sukuns at the end of a word, since there's a definite article after these, that sukun will change to a kasra in pronunciation and sometimes in vowing. So you'll get rajulayil bait and rajulayil bait. Indeclinables are words that end in an aleph maksura. They are always either with nunation or without nunation, but they're always a. So you get an, and a. A good example of an indeclinable is makha, where when it's indefinite you get makhan, 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 but in all other cases you get makha. So al-makha, 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 makhal madina, makhal madina, makhal madina. But notice when you add a pronoun in it, of course, the aleph maksura changes to an aleph, makhaha, makhaha, makhaha. Invariables are words that end in aleph with no tanween, and they never change. So no matter whether they're nominative, accusative, or genitive, or whether they have an attachment or not, they just always end in aleph. So for example, we have the word asa, which is a rod or a stick, so you get asa, 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 al-asa, 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 asaha, 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 asal-ustad, asal-ustad, asal-ustad. The other two patterns that are not going to be covered here are the weak diptoes and the weak triptoes. That's because we need to have a whole lesson on weak nouns and adjectives, but they are similar to what we've seen so far, and they make up the rest of the word classes for the purpose of case in Arabic. So to review the vowel patterns very quickly, the triptot pattern, the basic pattern is definite u, a, e, indefinite un, and in. Diptotes are the same definite u, a, e, but indefinite u, a. Sound feminine plural is u, e, un, in. Sound masculine plural with an article or no article is una, ina, and dropping the noon with the pronoun ridafa u, e. Duals, ani, eine, and with pronoun ridafa a, I. And then the indeclinables are an aleph maksura with tanween if indefinite, no tanween if definite, and the invariables have a plain aleph in all cases. So remember, when someone asks you what case is this noun, do not answer with a vowel or ending. Answer with the name of the case. When you need to figure out how to mark a noun or adjective, number one, figure out what the case is from how it is used in the sentence. Number two, figure out what the word class is. And three, then figure out what the marking is. In other words, how one marks that particular case on that particular word class.